Hey everybody, Jamie Kelly here. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Season 3 of the Approximate Podcast. Be sure to join our Patreon for only $5 a month to see all of Season 3's episodes in full HD video. That's patreon.com/Approximate Podcast. If you're already a patron, thank you so much for your support. And to everyone who's tuned in, we love you all. And now, on with the show. Kitty! Fucking stop it. God damn it. Fucking cat. Yeah, you. Oi. Scrapple. Stop it. All right, cut. We're done. Fucking cat. God damn it. Marshall, baby, how you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much.
It's been years.
It's been way too long.
It's too long. I think 2.5 years, right?
Something like that, yeah.
And you brought a friend, Lily, right?
Yes.
All right. How you doing?
Pretty well.
We've just met, and I think you're amazing.
Oh, thank you.
No, don't encourage them. Don't encourage them.
Go fuck off.
Yeah. I have a hard enough time dealing with them, and so.
This is the first time we've actually had two people on the podcast.
Yeah, we got to do
It's
that.
amazing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it sounds like that fourth mic works.
Yeah. Sounds like it to me.
Trial by fire. It works.
So Marshall, let's let the people know right away. Who are you and where are you coming from?
Okay. I'm a Las Vegas photographer here in town, and I do rope. That's really it. That's what I do.
That is such a simple.
What more do you want me to say?
Well,
I do rope and I take pictures. That is what I do.
We worked together again about 2.5 years ago.
At least 2.5, maybe 3.
Maybe 3.
Maybe
it has
3.
been.
It was before the quarantine. I think it was a
I
good
think
window
it
before
was.
the quarantine.
Oh, was
Yeah.
it?
How did we meet?
You contacted me.
Yeah, and it's because of the rope stuff.
Yes.
So, that's what I want to dig into, and I had a really great time, by the way.
That's all I care about as long as people
know.
have a really great time. That's,
But I'm not, I consider myself like a general porn performer, just a general adult entertainer. I don't come from lifestyle or anything like that.
Right.
And I don't have a lot of experience with bondage or rope or, etc. But I do love the aesthetic of it. And I think it's good to have in your repertoire.
That's the first thing that drew me to rope was the visual aesthetic of it, the appeal visually of it for me.
Well, so where did you get your start? How far back do you go?
About 8-10 years, something like that locally. And I started shooting pictures here in town. I moved to Vegas, I don't know, 12-13 years ago, maybe a little longer than that. And I got a job at a photo studio here in town working with a commercial photographer.
So was your first love photography?
My first love is photography. I've been shooting photos since I was in high school, and I graduated in 92. So I've been doing that for a very, very long time. And I've done all types of photography. I've shot weddings. I've shot
You've been an
portraits.
independent contractor.
Yeah.
You've done commercial.
I've done concert photography for newspapers. I've shot NFL games. I've done
Wow.
Ran the
all
gamut.
sorts of stuff. When I was living in Florida, I would shoot for the Times Union paper there and do a bunch of
Nice.
stuff like that. For a brief period of time, I wanted to become a photojournalist. That died off quickly because I just didn't want to have to deal with all the humans. So then for a while, I wanted to shoot landscape and animals and all that sort of stuff. And
I'm going to get nerdy for you in just a second because I'm going to take this thing I'm about to ask you to another thing.
Uh-oh.
First of all, what's your preferred camera?
Nikon. Because I like my shit to look good.
Oh, shots fired. I'm Canon, baby.
Hey, the world needs ditch diggers. It's totally fine.
How many awards do you have on your mantle?
I don't know. Handful of them, but I get paid better, so it's
Oh,
God damn.
damn it.
There's shots fired on here.
no.
and forth.
For a lot of years, I worked in camera stores selling gear, so I got that whole concept of there are two camps.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's the Pentax guys.
Oh, yeah.
and
Well,
stuff
let
like
me
that.
ask you this. Now, we're talking photography here. Okay, well, you got the body and you got the brand.
Sure.
What's your glass? What's your favorite glass?
85 1.4.
85 1.4.
Probably my favorite
from
Nikkor.
Nikkor.
Nikkor. I buy a brand lens all the time. I think they make a better lens. I think they
And this is for all your portraiture?
for everything that I shoot.
Everything.
practically.
So you need a lot of room.
Pretty much, yeah.
You're shooting on full frame?
Yes,
Of course.
Yeah,
You
but
still need a lot of room.
you do. But
need a lot of Z-space.
the 85 is gorgeous. I love the view of it. I love how the crispness of it.
Yeah.
The contrast is gorgeous. I rotate between that and a 2870 2.8 that I've had for a very long time. So, but all my lenses are all pro level lenses. They're all high end glass, and they're all Nikkor brand.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, I believe you.
yeah. I like it. I like my stuff to look good. The 85 I've been wanting for a very, very long time, and I borrowed one from a friend of mine one time, and just fell in love with it.
Yes.
And so the day I got enough money to like
It just
get
clicked.
one, I was like, fine.
Nice.
So
Well, I say that to say this. This is your like level of love for photography. What was the thing that like just made you like dip your toe into rope, and then how quickly were you drawn in?
well, so when I was working at the photo studio here in town, we would shoot modeling portfolios and like a lot of like commercial work and stuff like that. And we would do these workshops where we'd bring in a dozen models and like a bunch of what we call GWCs, guys with cameras.
Oh yeah.
And we would shoot like these modeling shoots and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed it, but I wanted to do something that like nobody else was doing. So I started looking at like rope bondage and things like that as a way to do something that no one else was doing at the time. And many, many years ago when I was very young, I saw a particular magazine that had a bunch of traditional Japanese bondage stuff in it, and it's always kind of stuck with me. So I started figuring things out. I bought books.
Yeah.
And then I came...
Self-taught.
A lot of it, yeah. And then I joined the local rope group, which at the time was a group called Reverse Tensions.
That was here in Vegas.
Here in Vegas, yes. And became friends with a bunch of the people who were there. Became really good friends with one of the organizers of it, and he would come to my shoots and do rope for me.
Okay.
And slowly I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. And then he would teach me stuff. And then like I would figure something out. I'd be like, hey man, I got this. I did this. And Matt would go, that's cool. Let me show you something else. And whatever he showed me was like 8 times better than what I just did. And I was like, fuck. Okay, so I got to get better. And just eventually
Learning experience, right?
Yeah, basically. And just started taking courses and like hanging out with guys who were way better than me. And
Yeah.
learning as much as possible. Basically, it's just a lot of the stuff that I've learned is just from hanging out with guys who are a whole lot better than me.
Yeah, and like through all that experience, I imagine like it felt like your life was going into different avenues you never expected.
Yes, I started out wanting to do it just visually, and I would tell people I'm a photographer. I'm looking at this from the visual aspect of it, and this is what I want to do. In fact, did you ever meet Amanda?
I don't believe so, no.
Dr. Amanda? I don't think.
No, but you've told me about her.
Okay. Anyway, we were friends through the rope group, and she would say things like, "Yeah, sure, you're a photographer. You're gonna be a pervert." And I'm like,
She
"No,
knew.
You're
Even if you didn't know, you
gonna
knew.
be a
She knew.
Yeah, and 10 years later, she's like, "Yeah, you're a pervert with you like rope," and I'm like, "Yes, okay, fine. I like rope."
But we find like in my experience, I've been in this business for years, but
Like 3, 4, something like that.
yeah,
They're really long years, but
very long years, exponential year-long
Yes.
bits, equivalent to 4. But you find that the stories, I'm sure you've run into these guys where it's like dick first, figuring out how to do photography and videography later.
yeah, no, I started with photography.
Yeah.
And that's when I shoot photos, that's my primary role is as a photographer.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And yes, I love getting the dick wet. Yes, absolutely. But I would rather get a really cool photo
Sure.
first.
Absolutely.
And become friends with that person and like grow with the person and stuff like that.
That's another thing, and that's what I like about like a pure passion is the people that you meet along the way and the relationships that you begin to harbor.
Absolutely.
Love
Absolutely.
that. So now I'm just curious because we have somebody that's completely new to me, Lily.
Hi.
How you doing? Let's just dive in somewhere. How do you guys know each other?
We met, in like 2021, a little bit after the quarantine times let up and everything. He had put out some open call on his Instagram to practice floor ties for like a performance or something.
I was doing a performance for some group. a kink group that was coming through town, and they wanted a rope performance.
Yeah,
And
some shit.
I was dating a girl at the time, and we were going to do a performance, but I needed more time practicing the ties. So I put it out. I was like, can anybody come to my house and just let me tie this on you?
And my crazy ass, not knowing who the fuck this was, no experience with rope, really was like, me, absolutely. Now, mind you, I had a couple of years of experience lifestyle with kink, just otherwise outside of rope.
Like BDSM type stuff?
Yeah, mostly impact. Was a very heavy impact bottom for quite some time before I found rope. But
And that's before porn too, or?
it coincided with me starting with porn, actually. Around 20 years old was when I started, both with like lifestyle shit and with porn. Okay. But I'd actually had some friends that I used to work with at old vanilla jobs that had worked with him. So I had somebody, thankfully, to like vouch for before I just showed up at a random man's house. And then
let it tie you up.
Craigslist days.
Yeah. And then from there, I
They
got
have a very poor sense of self-preservation.
Absolutely. Yes, to this day. But I got very lucky that we hit it off very well, and that it turned out I really liked rope and whatnot. I was not looking to particularly like it as much as I did. I just found out that it was a really good avenue for pain in an unexpected way, and he's like a guy, and we shoot shit a lot and everything, so got very, very lucky, but that was how we met.
And we tie regularly now.
Yeah,
So.
it's been 2 years, 3.
Yeah, 2 years.
Little
of,
over
like,
2 years,
2
I
years
think.
of like regular time. Like, we have like a standing Wednesday date basically. So whenever our schedules don't fuck it up completely.
Yeah.
Wednesday nights are usually.
I consider myself a masochist, right? And then like I'm getting this tie by him, by Marshall. Like we worked together like a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a month ago.
A month ago, I'm really slow on my edits for you, and I apologize about that. I'm trying to get through a bunch of stuff. So
I understand. He had me in this. He had me in this like double fudamomo, which is, I don't know, to the crowd if you know these things. This is a Eastern.
Please do explain, because I, as the host of the show and somebody that, like I explained before, just has like a kind of general overview, I'm learning. Like I got experts here in a field that I barely fuck with. So yeah, well, what is that?
Fudamomo is just like a chicken wing type tie, but on your legs.
basically, yeah. It's where you take your heel, bring it up to your butt, and wrap the whole leg, basically.
Yeah.
And it can be as a ground tie, it can be as a suspension tie, stuff like that. And there's a ton of different variations off of it. Some are neater, some are like very complex, some are just like super sloppy, where you just tie them super fast, and they're designed for like pain.
For the most part, all of them suck. I have not been in a Fudamomo variation that has not at least a little bit sucked. Very marginally so have I noticed a difference of like things being a little less painful, but not enough to make any worthwhile difference.
Yeah, I was in this tie, this double Fudamomo tie, and we were about to do a full inversion. And I was hanging out there for a second, and he was like, yeah, that's what my partner does just to get zen and just
hang
relax,
out.
Just hang out. I'm like,
More or less.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Yeah, I'll put them up and then just like go over and sit in the corner and be like, dude,
Do.
give them a few minutes. And when I get bored, I'm like, where's the stick?
Yeah, that's the idea. You just like poke them with a stick.
Yeah,
or something.
basically.
I wish it was just a poke.
Oh, of course.
Oh, come on. You love it. You know.
Canes especially.
Love it.
Well, I know for you, Stephanie, I know how much you love rope, and I've known you for almost 12 years now, and you have there's this word that keeps coming up that I keep hearing out of your mouth and seeing in texts that you write. It's a kind of rope. It's a Japanese word. What is that?
Oh, well, there's two different words. It's shibari and kimbaku.
Shibari. Explain shibari to me. What is this?
Shibari. Go ahead.
Shibari is just the Japanese style of tying rope.
It's a style of tying
It's
rope.
a style of tying rope. Shibari and kimbaku, both of those can be used interchangeably.
Oh.
They basically just mean to be tied or to be bound tightly.
Now, isn't shibari like just tying the rope, and then kimbaku is like the art of tying the rope or something like that?
Everybody that I've ever talked to has always said they're basically interchangeable.
Yeah, I've heard
You
that.
know,
too.
at that point. So I don't know. Personally,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I use them both randomly. Now there are little subsets of those things. Like was it Nichiwa?
Ichinoa. Like one rope.
One rope tie.
Oh, okay.
There's ties. Seminawa, which is tying specifically for pain.
Yeah, like the samurai stuff and like takedown.
No,
that's where rope comes from, or what is
kind
where
of.
kind of is
Kind of
where
like
it's.
That's Hojo Jitsu.
Yeah.
Oh, Hojo. Yeah, that's
Hojo Jitsu is a form of rope tying for prisoners, and it was designed to be tied quickly and to subdue somebody,
Right.
and things like that. Now
Tie that counts.
there's a lot of like people who will tell you that that's what Japanese rope is based off of. It's that's where we learned all this stuff from, is from ancient samurai, yada yada yada. We didn't learn any of that stuff from them.
They're from perverts.
Perverts.
Yes.
Perverted samurai.
Bastardized version.
My feeling on it has always been that like they did base some of the ties on some of Hojo Jitsu's tying because it was efficient, not because of anything other than it's an efficient form of tying. It's a quick and simple form of tying that can be done easily and smoothly.
I see. So this lends itself well to a production schedule.
Basically, yeah. And the guys who were really into it in the like late 50s, early 40s, or late 40s, early 50s, stuff like that, when it was really beginning, I think just based it off of old Japanese like wood carvings and like Hojo Jitsu style stuff because it was simple. Easy. It was, like they picked it up. And then over the years, they've modified it into what we call shibari today.
I see.
And that's Eastern, and then Western came from like cowboys and
Western
Americans.
Wait a minute. This is very interesting. Western. So is there a word for a Western style of tying?
Not really.
Not really?
No, just Western style of tying is essentially like the Betty Page stuff.
Yeah, Betty Page.
It's very utilitarian. The knots are very chunky, big. There's like heavy on the wraps. It's also very heavy on like the contortion of the body, like hog ties and things like that.
I was gonna see, is there a language for like the type of knots? Like, do you all like pride yourself on how many kinds of knots that you know?
No.
Really?
Okay,
You only need to know is a square knot and like a quick release.
Granny knot. Granny knot, overhand knot is like the only two real knots that we utilize in Japanese style.
Right.
Now, anchoring to the body, you'll tie like a single column tie so that the bands themselves that would are wrapped around the body do not constrict. And that's either using a single column tie or Somerville bowline or something of that nature.
Right.
Non-collapsible knot.
Non-collapsible.
Yeah.
Is basically what that means, yeah.
Right.
But as far as the overall tying, like the chest harnesses and things like that, most of that stuff is locked together with just the rope being reversed on itself. So there's friction.
Tension and reverse tension.
And then, hitches. So it's all designed to be quick on, quick off, and smooth on, smooth off. Basically, the idea of it is you want to tie it as smoothly as possible.
I see. I'm learning so much today.
Yeah, I only know like 3 knots.
Really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I know
He's really good at rope.
I know 2 really pretty decorative knots, and that's like
Well, you got like the coin knot.
the double coin knot, and
There you go.
there's a variation on the double coin knot that extends it out to make it like a plate
okay.
kind of thing. And I forget what the 2 naughty boys called that one.
Fancy
Or
ones.
something like that. I don't remember what it's called, but I know how to tie that one too. So I made blindfolds with that.
Now I'm fascinated. I'm like super stoked about learning. So in my brains, I'm thinking, if I were to just blindly attempt to do anything, my dumbass would go down to the Home Depot and I'd buy some like nylon rope. What rope is good? What rope's good for feeling? What rope is good for on camera?
All rope is good rope.
All rope is good rope.
It's a very personal thing for sure.
So the synthetics are going to have a higher burn speed or lower? Is it higher or lower?
Higher
Higher.
burn speed when you
That
pull
shit
them
will
across
burn.
the skin. It will burn faster, but synthetics are load rated. So safety aspects are a lot nicer for those. If safety is your thing, those also though will not have the same friction in them, which means that how you tie them, like the knots that you utilize or the hitches that you utilize, will be different than the hitches utilized for like a natural fiber rope, which has more of like a what we call tooth, which is basically friction of the rope.
Yeah.
Kind of thing like that. So that as it's holding onto itself, that friction is what is actually holding all those knots together.
Right.
And natural fiber ropes have like a natural friction to them.
The good thing about synthetic rope, though, you can wash it without a bunch of headache about
Yes.
keeping it under tension and all that stuff like that. So do all your piss play and all that stuff like that with your synthetic ropes.
Yep.
Throw it in the washer and be fucking done with
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
Absolutely. Or if you're doing like water, if you're shooting in water,
yeah.
things of that nature. Natural fiber rope, when it gets wet, will actually constrict. And it will get a whole hell of a lot tighter, which can be fun, but
Got to be
on
prepared for
on
that.
a production side of it, you're like, okay, now
It's a
the
liability.
person in it is like, this is a lot tighter than what we started out with.
Is there like a rope that you, either one of you, I mean, everybody here except me is an expert.
Rope person.
Rope fetishists.
Is there a quote unquote, what my layman ass would call like a pretty rope, or do they come in
Yeah.
like dyed colors?
Yeah, you
yeah.
can get them in
Yes,
any
both.
color.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's certain manufacturers that make a wide variety of all different colors, and they have
Can we say names?
sure, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Twisted Monk.
Twisted Monk does really good. If you're looking for a lot of really pretty colors in synthetic, knothead nylon.
Knothead nylon. I got tied by him at Fire, actually.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Nice.
He produces his company makes like, I don't know, 100 different colors of nylon ropes.
Oh wow.
And like
Every-
offbeat colors too, not like standard
Yeah,
colors.
not like just red, blue,
Yeah,
green, like
yeah.
all sorts of stuff. It's really neat.
Yeah.
When we worked together, I don't imagine you'd even remember, but I seem to think did we work with some kind of like burgundy or
Possibly.
Purplish rope.
At about that time, I was shooting with some red rope and some forest green.
right?
So you might have gotten the red rope that day.
Another question. This is more photography side. I know you shoot a lot of black and white.
I do.
So what do you find? And I'm sure this is going to be like particular to like model skin tone and stuff. But do you find that there's a rope in black and white that shows up better than another?
I think they all show up really well. The idea, though, for me, when I shoot black and white, I tend to use one of my colored ropes simply because then in post I can go in and control that channel of color to allow for it to fall in the tone of gray that I want it to be. And if I stay away from red, then that doesn't affect the model's skin tone. That's one of the reasons I use the green that I do, because also if I'm selecting for skin smoothing or something like that, no one is green. So my rope never gets selected in my auto, like when I'm trying to clean up skin tones and stuff like that. Whereas like natural fiber rope will fall into the same overall tone of a lot of skin tone. So you end up having to mask that out. Otherwise your rope gets real fuzzy soft. It's very pretty looking. Like the skin looks pretty, but then the rope looks like fuzzy soft. And I like the idea of like this
A natural
really,
glow about it.
yeah,
like a
basically.
Gaussian
I really
blur
like
on it.
the super pretty skin, and then like the rope just looks like gnarly.
Yeah. That's hot. I like that too.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very hot.
Yeah. And then rope marks too, right? After you take the rope off.
The imprints are my favorite. That is what really became my fetish. I touch a lot of rope marks.
So when you have models in, do you go for a really tight snag so that you can get those marks?
Sometimes, depending on the model. Depending on the model, models that I've worked with that are friends of mine, stuff like that. Yeah, I've done that a couple of times because I'm just like, come here, let me scratch that.
Fantastic.
When I tie them, I do the same thing.
Yeah. The marks are half of the fun. for
yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bruises, half of the fun,
They
right?
really do show up cool on camera.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they look gorgeous.
Oh yeah.
Actually, your rope marks look really good. Yeah, there's a bunch of really cool rope marks from the shoot that we did.
Yeah.
So,
I posted a picture afterwards, but I was like, oh, they've already kind of worn out.
yeah. No, I got
Gotta get
some really
right
good
at
ones
it.
actually. So
Nice. Hell yeah, I can't wait to see.
Steph, you kind of been out of the game a little bit, rope or porn scenes or otherwise. How long had it been since your encounter with Marshall? Since the last time you did like some really heavy rope play?
Since last time being like a bottom, because I've done top stuff much more recently, but like the bottom, God. Like heavy rope play, probably, honestly. Either something with my ex-girlfriend or something like way back at like Fire 2016. Like when
Damn.
his name starts with Z. God,
So we're
I wish
talking
I
over
remembered
5
his freaking
years.
Name. I did a performance with this. Fuck, I wish I remember. It starts with a Z. He's like an older guy.
Is he based out of LA by chance?
No, he's out of Florida, actually. The whole Woodshed crowd down there.
Okay.
His name starts with Z. and I remembered his name for a long time because he pretty much fucked me up. It was great. So
That's how you make an impression.
Yeah.
so Fire
Mind the pun?
Fire was like I felt like Florida rope intensive or something like that experience. Florida intensive rope experience. Yeah. So there's a bunch of people performing and whatnot, and I was just in one of the things performing with this guy, and we did kind of a similar tie to what we had because we had like a Fudamomo lifting me up, but I didn't get off the ground at that point. So you're the first one who took me off of the ground in a Fudamomo. Now, like Nikki Nefarious is taking me off the ground in other ties. She's a rigger out of LA and San Diego. Yeah, it's been a while, and it felt freaking good.
It felt good, didn't
I'll
it?
tell you what really spawned it is one day I was taking a run in the morning, and I was taking a picture of the moon was still up in the sky in the morning. So like right before the moon goes down over the mountains. I took a picture of it, and then I misjudged jumping off the wall I was on, and I fell on my ass, and I'm like, ouch, but I kind of missed that.
You cannot relate to that at all, can you, Lily?
Never.
I was like, who's gonna beat me now? Who's gonna tie me up? And then I started looking around, and you said something about wanting to tie pretty much the same way that
My story, yeah.
I've done some pretty sketchy shit though. Met people off of Craigslist and all that shit. So I was like,
We've all been there.
Don't worry about it. Our second shoot's going to be way sketchier.
hey, I'm down.
Yeah. I usually like to let the first one be like a nice thing to do. You know?
Well, I was asking you for a hog tie at the end there.
Yeah, you were. But again, it's one of those things where it's like, especially being a photographer, like I like to work with somebody one time just to sort of feel them out and figure out what they can and can't do and things like that. And the second time we come back, it'll make it a little worse, a little more challenging and stuff like that. Like I've always kind of done that because you never know.
Yeah,
You don't know
with
it.
rope, I feel like.
Especially with rope.
I've definitely like been tied by people that were perfectly fine people for perfectly fine tops, but just weren't my people. Does that make sense? And all it took was that one time of just like testing the waters to be like, all right, like this is cool and whatnot. Like, thanks for the experience, but we don't need to continue to do this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I've worked with bottoms like that too. Like I've worked with bottoms where I'm like, okay, they were nice, but
Can do without.
I could do without that. You know, and I know, and as a photographer, we also get models who will show up who's like, yeah, I saw this really cool photo, and I want to do that, and they show me the photo, and I'm like, have you ever like?
Do you know what you're asking?
Yeah, I'm like, what's your pain tolerance? Do you like to cry? You know, and they're like, no, I just want it because it's pretty, and I'm like, yeah, this is a very advanced tie, and it's going to suck.
Beauty is pain.
It is. But like, I'm looking at some of the people I've tied that I've worked with and stuff, and I'm just like, you're not there.
Yeah.
Like I get what you want. I really do, and I try and give them something that's what they can do. But like I've done a few things where I'm like, you're not going to get into that tie. You're not.
I feel like a lot of people look at pictures like that too, particularly really extreme ones, and don't realize that there's usually other people that are like helping with it, like somebody else that's spotting to like then come over and lift them up. The person's probably only in it for a couple of seconds to a minute tops and whatnot for the specific sake of the photo.
I have
a
story like that. Yeah, I have a story like that.
Yeah?
A friend of mine wanted to do like a very challenging photo shoot. And she was in rope with us for a couple of years, stuff like that. So we've done a lot of things with her. And she's like, every tie we do today has to suck. It has to be bad. And each one's got to be worse than the next one. I'm like, okay, cool. So we did a bunch of them. And then we ended with tying their wrists and ankles up to the ring in a back bend.
Oh.
And like we brought their hands together with their feet, basically.
Ooh.
So they're full back bend. And then we hung an 15-pound kettlebell off of their waist.
Wow.
And I have
somebody in
I
half
have
that way.
8 photos of this shot. Okay. My lights take 1 second to recycle. So 8 seconds she was in this thing until I heard her start saying fuck in so many syllables. I did not know the word fuck had so many syllables in it. And my buddy Ravi comes running over because we set it up, and like, you know, that's one of those things where you have his wife was there, Ravi was there. He would run up, he'd grab the model lift them up, pull the quick release on the kettlebell, drop that to the floor. The wife drew a table underneath, put them down, untying everything. Like it was very, very quick.
Yeah.
And we've done shoots where I've had people like helping me do this sort of stuff like that. And what you don't see in the photo is the two guys standing on either side who are like, okay, we step back 15 seconds, pull them out, and that's all they're in that tie for. They're never in it for more than like a minute at the most.
Right.
We did a water bonded shoot, same thing. Tied Samantha Roan up.
Oh, I love her.
Threw her into a pool
She's great.
with a kettlebell and let her sink to the bottom.
Wow.
What you don't see is Ravi on one side and this other guy on the other side, and all of us going 1, 2, 3, like counting off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you hit 20, and they dive in, grab her and pick her up, bring her out of the water so she can breathe. We talk to everybody for a few minutes, and they're like, okay, I can do one more time. I'm like, okay, take a breath. We're going to drop you. Just start counting. We all started counting it all at the same pace. So the model knows that when they reach 20, the two guys on the side, they're also at 20. They jump in. Then, yeah.
Oh
That's
my
what
God.
you don't see in the photos
Yeah.
is all that.
You know what? A shout out to the unsung heroes, the PAs.
Absolutely.
Oh,
The
yeah.
PAs. A shout out to the
World
PAs.
go
They
round.
make it all happen, and nobody knows about them.
Yep.
It's like editors.
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
If you do it right, those people never get heard from. And that's kind of what you want.
Right.
You know,
Right.
You kind of want them to never be heard from.
Right. If you notice it, it's a bad job.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So,
I know that a lot of times people who watch porn, they get this impression that like, oh, I can do that. I can do any of that, especially when it comes to kinky porn.
Yeah.
And they completely underestimate like what it actually takes to be safe, sane, consensual, even rack, like risk assess, consensual kink. Like, you know, if they even know what those acronyms are.
Which they probably don't.
no, they base it all around the fuck around and find out theory.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you find out, it's tenfold. You don't want that.
Yes.
Yeah, we get a lot of people that drop out real quick once they see what the reality of the situation is.
Absolutely, because it's infinitely less glamorous than
There's-
people outside looking in want to think and whatnot. Everybody thinks that it's the easiest job and they can do it and all this other stuff, and it's nothing but glitz and glam until you are in it doing it. Even just normal mainstream porn, let alone kink stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
normal
y'all,
mainstream porn guys.
all these porn people, they're all rich. They have Lamborghinis. They live in mansions. No, it cost me $800 to do this. I didn't make
Yeah.
a dime on doing this thing that you love so much.
My favorite thing to tell like civilians, vanilla people, is just how much it costs to get tested to work and
to get
whatnot.
tested,
and
right.
they fucking lose their minds. They're like, you do that just to work? And I'm like, yeah.
That's how it
Can't
works.
just go to your doctors or something? No.
every year.
I'm still clean though. I'm fine. I'm still clear.
Yeah, sure you
Yeah.
are.
Like even the guys that are like just wanting to do mainstream stuff and they don't know shit about any kind of kink stuff or anything like that, but they don't even think about like the stopping and starting, staying hard, force positioning, you know, all of that stuff.
The fact that you might not like the people that you have to fuck and
Oh my
everything.
God. Just,
yeah.
just the human level.
chemistry alone, right? Yeah.
That
Stay
exactly.
hard.
lack of it.
Stay hard while 15 people watch you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
With no
behind the
AC
scenes.
on.
with no AC in the nastiest like building you could possibly imagine. Yes, absolutely. While literally the PA is sitting on his phone on Twitter, like
Oh yeah, I used to get so much work done on Twitter and like OnlyFans and whatnot when I was a production assistant. I took naps on set when we would go on days where like we didn't have to stop and start a whole bunch. When we would set up like the curtains for certain positions, I would just stand on the other side or like lay down and take straight up naps for like 20, 30 minutes.
Seriously, as a performer, you find yourself in positions where you got to take little quick, like 5-6 minute power naps.
Yep.
Because life happens behind the scenes.
Well, it's all about
you know?
hurry up and wait.
And there's a lot of hurry up
There's
and
a
wait.
lot of hurry up and wait. There's a lot of trying to figure stuff out. And then you start getting into rope tying and stuff like that. And then there's a finite amount of time that the person can be in the rope. So like I found myself like I'd step up to do a tie for a shoot or something like that. And I'm like, okay, I need 5 minutes to put this person in. And the last wrap that I put them on, I turn to the director and I'm like, they have 20 minutes, period. Or like, depending on what it is, I'm like, they got like 5. And we're going to have to change it up or something like that, depending on what the type of thing was or something like that. And they had to be ready to like start shooting right at that point.
Yeah.
And they're on the clock.
And we don't have placeholders like TV and stuff. We don't have placeholders
Stunt
to
doubles.
we don't have placeholders to like get the light right and get the get the sound right, get everything right.
Stand-ins, there's no stand-ins
We
in
don't have
porn.
placeholders to stand-ins, nothing like that. It's just us. Hurry up and wait. You're usually just like waiting around to okay, we're ready for you, and then you do your part.
You got about, if you're fortunate, you have 6 hours.
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
it's
on a
normal,
good
you
day.
have 3 to 4.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been on set for 12.
I think that's about the longest I've been on set, but it was as a production assistant, not talent, thankfully.
Yeah, mine was just rigging and doing multiple riggings throughout the day, and like then there was break times and stuff like that, and like
Yep.
A lot of downtime.
there was a lot of downtime.
A lot of independent production gets really hairy. So, like, I've been on, like, it kind of becomes hard to quantify as an independent producer. Case in point, I have a series of DVDs called Transsexuals. And it's an orgy scene, essentially, without going into details. But I, as a person that had to finance it and do everything myself, the shooting time would normally take about 4 to 6 hours. But everything behind and after took the entire day.
Absolutely.
And then there's been, I think, as just a performer, I've been on set. I think my longest set was an 11-ish hour day, more towards 12, to do a simple VR scene.
Oh, VR.
You've done
scenes.
VR?
When I was a production assistant, it was for a VR site. So
You know
how-
it takes a bunch.
Yes, particularly when people aren't prepared for it or anything like that, it can be a lot for sure. It either goes really good or really bad.
That's why I'm happy I don't deal with that sort of stuff.
I haven't done VR yet, but I've had about a 15-hour shoot day.
What?
Out in Martha's Vineyard
Really?
with a company.
Can I ask what company?
Yeah, but it was more the director than the company.
Okay.
But yeah, it was for Transensual, but it was the director at the time that made it more of a nightmare. And it was only one scene. It was going to stretch out into being 2 more, but she ended up canning those other 2 when it was too long. When the whole
You start running over time,
Yeah.
and then plans had to change.
Yeah. And
Well, 'cause
also
at a certain point, you've got to change gears.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had to do that on set where like the day has gone on a little too long, and at that point, the performers are tired. At that point, they're
Absolutely.
Yeah.
they can't do what they could do at 10 in the morning this morning.
Yeah.
So some of the ties I've had to do have had to be like babied down, had to be like a little less of that, more like tied to something as opposed to hanging in the air.
Structure ties, yeah.
Stuff like that. More decorative tying that they could just look pretty while they're being used and stuff like that. Because by the end of the day, they're like, I cannot possibly have my leg behind my head anymore.
Any longer.
I'm
Getting
done.
fucked in the ass and
Yeah.
everything. Like, I'm hungry, man.
So,
Burger.
that's what people don't understand about it. They don't.
Yeah,
they don't see
that. I was gonna say that's a thing that we all have to grapple with. Is the amount of planning. Your shoot is only as good as the planning,
Absolutely.
and the pre-production, and then you can have everything completely planned out to the T. And then you still have to go, this could absolutely all fall apart, and you have to have a contingency plan. And you have to have enough time on your watch to allow for mistakes and everything falling apart.
Failure is always an option.
Yeah. And it can turn a lot of people off. But for those of us that are invested in this venture that we call adult entertainment,
I like it.
success is built off of failure. I look forward to failure. Failure is how we learn.
Absolutely.
So it's never just. I've been in this business for years, but there's a reason why I've never had to punch a time clock card in all that time. Because I love the failure as much as the successes, and I love learning how the importance of prepping.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And ways, I mean, failure is the most important part, honestly, because that's how you do.
That's how you figure things out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do that with rope on a regular basis and stuff like that.
100%.
Like, we'll finish a tie or something like that, and it didn't go the way it should have. And so I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. What did we do wrong?
What have we learned?
Yeah. What
Yeah.
happened? Just recently with the nerve thing, which I haven't asked you in the last few days. How's your?
It's still a little bit there, but
Yeah.
it's okay. But yeah, just recently had something similar, like learning by failure and whatnot. Was in a shape that I had been in plenty of times before, that he had tied me in, other rope tops had tied me in, and actually found a variation of this tie that was the most comfortable for me and my preferences, but it gave me a nerve injury on my leg. Thankfully, it was nothing serious in the sense that I still had full function, mobility of my leg, but the whole like outer right side of my calf on my right leg was numb. Like I could like draw my nails across it and wouldn't feel shit. It's a little trippy.
Wow.
For sure. But trial by fire for sure. And afterwards, especially when we were looking at pictures, we were like, all right, this was what likely caused that. And we know to not do this next time.
Was it pinch or was it?
It was a crossover in some of the ropes that I think that it created a hot spot. And I don't know where it created it at specifically. I just know that on the right leg, there were two separate where the bands were slightly overlapping. And I think that's where it created it at.
Yeah.
So, but the next time we tie it, which after they heal up and all
all
that sort of
good.
stuff like that, we'll try it again and be very specific, very mindful of that
that
leg
stuff.
and that spot, and
Right.
see if maybe we can figure out what we did wrong.
Yeah, mitigating risks.
Yep.
Figure out how to make it work.
Risk aware
Big thing
shit.
about kink.
Yeah, well, rope is technically an edge play. Like it is a very dangerous thing.
Yeah.
There's a
That's what
reason,
people
yeah.
don't understand, that it is a very dangerous kind of
100%.
Nerve damage is a lifelong thing.
Absolutely. And
Absolutely.
it can be lifelong
And
easily.
it can be way more serious than what, happened with me. Like there have been people that we both know, mutual friends, that it wasn't just loss of sensation. It's, legit. They cannot move their hands or their fingers.
You're not eating your
what is it?
have
Flipper
Yeah.
hand, I think it's
We
called
call it flipper hand.
in the community.
Yeah, where you just lose the ability to like operate your hand. And I have a buddy of mine who ties his wife on a regular basis, and one time neither of them noticed it.
Yep.
They get her out of the tie and everything, and she's like, I cannot operate this hand.
Damn.
I want to sing your praises for a moment, because even though it was been a few years since you and I have worked together, I remember very explicitly that you brought me through the motions as a person that has not had a lot of experience with rope.
Right.
And you warned me of the dangers. You said, hey, if such and such happens, let me know right away. And I found that so gratified that you were you know what you're doing.
Well,
And I felt like comfortable, like I was working with a true professional, because you put the
Yeah.
dangers
so
first.
I know what I'm doing, but I also know how quickly it can go sideways.
Right.
Yeah.
And I always joke that I like hurting people. I don't want to injure them.
Not harm them.
And those
Yeah.
are injuries. Those are things that have gone wrong, and I don't like that.
Sure.
So I'm very big on my communication, and I work with a lot of people who are just getting into rope. So I'm like trying to be very specific about, can you do this? Can you do this? This is what I need you to feel for. If you feel this, you need to let me know.
Right.
If you feel this, I'm less concerned, but let me know either way.
Right.
That sort of thing like that. I want you to understand what a good feeling is, a bad feeling is, and then what one of those really bad feelings are.
Yeah, where the tolerances are.
Right.
Yeah.
And, and if necessary, I'll cut anybody out of rope. It doesn't matter to me. Rope is cheap. People are not.
The difference is what? Circulation and nerves, right?
Yes.
Circulation and nerves are the two big things. Now, circulation is a problem, but it is not the end-all, be-all. We can actually go for quite a long time with circulation being impeded. If you wake up in the middle of the night with your foot tingling or your arm tingling or something like that, that is literally you cutting off the circulation to that limb.
Right.
And it probably was over an hour long that you've had that happen. Get up in the morning, shake it off, walk around, kick a chair, stuff like that, and it comes back.
Right.
That's not a problem. Nerve impingements are much quicker to feel, and they
Last a
last
lot longer.
if you do not address them right off the bat.
Right.
So if you have a nerve impingement and like say your pinky goes numb, if you tell me about it and I walk over and I adjust the rope 1/4 of an inch up or down, that could fix it completely. And almost instantaneously you'll be like, oh, I can feel my pinky again. If you sit there and go, oh, well, I can handle this for a little while longer, it's totally fine. I will be okay.
You're in trouble.
The longer you do that, well, that means that the longer you're going to damage that nerve and the longer it's going to have to heal.
Right.
And if you like the idea of using a fork or touching yourself. Stuff
Important
like that.
things.
Yeah, important things. Feeding yourself, not having somebody open your bottles for you. Things like that. Do you like to tie your shoes? Do you like that ability? You want to keep that up?
Things you take for granted.
Yeah, then you let
100%.
you let me know those things. Like I said, I had a friend, like his wife just could not open bottles or jars or anything for almost 2 months-ish, something
It got
like
better,
that.
though?
Yeah, eventually it got better.
That's good.
I actually tied like a play tie with somebody one time who did not tell me that their hand had gone numb. And this was the one and only time that I ever tied with this person.
You did mention that.
And I will never tie with them again, period. Like ever. Because we got done and everything, and we had a great scene, great session. It was super fun. It wasn't for photography. It was just, she was coming to town, wanted to tie. I'm like, cool, that'd be fun. Afterwards, I'm like, I'm a gentleman. Let's go to dinner. And I'm noticing that they're not using their left hand
My
at
goodness.
all. And I'm like,
goodness.
is your hand okay? It's like, oh, no, it's totally numb. I can't operate it. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't operate? She goes, I can't make it bend.
Oh my God.
And I'm like, well, that shit's bad. And
Yeah.
she goes, no, it's happened like 4 or 5 times. It's fine. It'll come back.
Girl.
And I'm like, one of these days, it's not.
Not.
Like
Yeah.
one of these days, it is not going to come back like you think it will. Like one of these days, you may never be able to operate 3 of your fingers. Like, is that cool to you? It's because it's not cool to me.
Yeah.
And the fact that they didn't say anything to me until we're sitting at dinner was one of those things where I'm just like, in the back of my mind, I'm like, I will never speak to you again. You enjoy your food, sweetie, because as soon as I drop your ass off, you're gone. So, yeah.
Hope she's okay now.
I hope so too, but it was one of those things where I'm just like, no. If you had told me, there was 100 things I could have done. Like we could have switched it up so quick, and everything would have been great. So,
Jesus Christ, how harrowing.
Yeah.
I have a question because we're starting to come up to the top of the podcast.
okay.
So we generally like to end it with this because this is a industry show.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell you right away, I appreciate how professional y'all are. This is
You.
yes.
We try.
So
We
I
try very hard.
I want to disseminate as much useful information as possible for people that might be listening because it's going to be a lot of folks that we know.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, what's Marshall up to? Hey, what's Lily up to? And it's also going to be a lot of like new listeners, people that are like wanting to dip their toe in, just based off of what they see. Oh, there's a podcast with some porn performers. I always wanted to do porn. Let me see
Right.
what they're talking about. So a question I like to end the show with is if you had, and this is going to be for both of you,
Okay.
we'll start with Marshall, but what are, from your perspective and your experience, what are 3 pieces of advice you'd give to somebody coming up and starting in the industry? Now, you have a lot to choose from. You could be speaking to performers. You could be speaking to producers. So wherever you think you have some, like 3 pieces of a good advice, and you can mix and match.
Okay.
3 pieces of advice, and then we'll get to you.
Of course.
God, that's really hard. So as a performer, if you're going to get into like kink stuff and things like that, be communicative. Like talk to the people on set. Talk to your rigger. Tell them everything that's going on. Tell them everything that's like you have an issue with your body before you begin any of that stuff. If they're on a professional shoot, if they're a shoot with people who are, want to keep you safe, they're going to adjust everything to physically fit you. And then you're going to have a much better experience.
Right.
So if you don't tell us things, then we don't know these things.
Communication is
Yes,
key.
communication is key.
Don't
read
be
your
a
mind.
don't be a wilting lily. Speak up.
Yeah.
Speak up.
Absolutely.
Can't read your mind and don't try to be the tough submissive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a very
Yeah.
important. That's a
Don't
very
try
good way
and-
of putting it.
yeah.
Don't try to be tough.
Because what you consider really hard to do, somebody else may consider super simple. So it's not a blanket thing of this is the tough stuff we're doing. This may be the tough stuff for you.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Makes perfect
So
sense.
communicate as much as possible.
Would be a second thing.
Oh God, 3 things. I don't know if I can-
This doesn't
Well,
have
you know
many.
what? You know
There
what?
is.
If you're ever, I like learned this. If you're ever at a loss for words as to 3 things, pick 3 things that things that annoy you.
Well,
Address an annoyance.
Okay.
an annoyance. An annoyance.
You don't communicate.
Yeah. Well, don't communicate. Also, it's not a dating service.
Yup.
Hey, there we go. This is very good. I'm glad you brought that up.
I mean, I flirt a lot. I really do because I like flirting. Even when I tell people, I love to flirt even when I know it's not going to go anywhere at all. I still like to flirt. It's fun. It's just fun. Yeah. But at the end of the day, this is like I'm working. So at the end of the day, I'm not trying to pick up a date. I'm not trying to get laid or any of that sort of stuff like that. It's a job. So make sure you remember that it's a job and that these people are that you're working with are trying to do their job too. So,
If anything's to form relationship-wise out of any of the work, it'll just form naturally.
it will.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. If you pursue it, I don't know about that.
I've dated 2 of my scene partners, and it just formed naturally. Yeah.
One of my last important relationships. She came to me as a model, and we hit it off really well, and it grew from that. But it's very
organic. Yeah.
It's organic. It's not. I've worked with people who are like phenomenally gorgeous, and I'm like, oh, you are perfect, and I'm like, it's not going anywhere.
I was gonna say, you can tell, I run both gamuts, both sides of the fence. As a producer, as a performer, and every other kind of play you can spin. You can tell people's sense of boundaries.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? So, I mean, this is your moment to talk, but if I'm to add to it whatsoever, if you're a producer, be very cognizant of whoever's coming to your stage. See what their sense of, because we're dealing with people here, and we're dealing with a business where the bar for entry is so low. You're going to get all kinds of people.
Absolutely.
You're going to get some of the most professional people,
And you're gonna get some that are not.
and you're going to get some people that are not, and you're going to find that there's this kind of common thread of, okay, this might be a problem person. Let's just get the shot, And as a performer, be the same way, never walk into a situation completely trusting, because again, you don't know what a producer's boundaries are. So you always got to be cognizant.
The third thing is learn from your mistakes. You are going to fuck up. You are going to do something wrong. You are going to cross a line. You are going to do whatever that mistake is. It's going to happen eventually. So admit it, understand that you did it, and learn from it.
And don't harp on it.
Yeah.
If you make a mistake, it's not the end of the world.
It's not.
It is
no.
a growing and learning experience.
It is. And just understand that you don't do it again.
You don't do it again. The world's not going to fall apart. Now, I'm speaking to, because I know a lot of performers. I know this is actually speaking more to performers, because I know we're maybe a little bit more prone to being juggling with insecurities. If you make a mistake, the world's not going to end. Not everybody in the world's going to hate you. It's just a thing that happened on set, and you learn from it, and internalize the lesson, and just keep moving forward. Just keep being tenacious,
Get better.
So thank you so much for that. Lily, I got to turn to you.
Yeah.
3 pieces of advice that you give somebody.
Really good.
Shut the fuck up.
I love that.
He kind of stole one in terms of and we had talked about this earlier about not being afraid to fail, not being afraid to make mistakes. Specifically, what my mind went to was the avenues in which you take in sex work, because there's so many different ways, mainstream, independent content creation, dancing, full service stuff, cam modeling, all of it. And I've done a pretty good plethora of all of that stuff over my years and have failed miserably at a few of them. Stripping, for example, is not for me. God bless strippers.
Not your
God
deal.
bless them. Nope, I did not like it in the slightest, and I don't think that I would make good money if I had stayed with it. Failed at it, but kept it fucking moving and found camming, which then became my thing for quite some time. And then eventually, everything else fell into place because I got tired of making my own shit. But in general, not being afraid to fail and go through things, making errors, trial by error shit.
Yeah.
The second thing that came to me pretty easily, which is a little specific to my experience with how I branded myself, but I like to tell newbies to sex work to try and brand yourself, market yourself as close to yourself as possible. Because I know for me personally, I have definitely branded myself as like very hyper femme, and it's something that is like kind of desired out of me doing mainstream specifically, and I've made peace with it and whatnot, but I definitely get resentful of it from time to time, and if I could go back in time and like change that image to something that was a little bit more true to me outside of porn, I absolutely would.
I'm just going to interrupt you for just a second. This is a theme that has, like, we're 7 episodes in as of the time of this recording, and this is a thing that keeps coming up.
Really?
Being true to yourself. Like, if I could, I can't
go
wait
back.
for you guys to see these episodes, because it is. Every person we've had on the mic at some point has said something to that effect. Yeah. Being true to yourself is paramount.
100%.
And I know it can be tough, because a lot of the people that come into this industry come from an age where they're still discovering themselves.
100%. Yeah, I was 19 when I entered the industry.
Right. So sometimes it takes a little, it takes failing to discover who you are, and then standing up for who you are as 100%. You proceed further.
I was in my 40s when I started doing this crap. Oh my God.
I wouldn't have marked you for anything over 36.
Wow.
That's really nice of you.
Yeah, I just had my 10th birthday. So. Yeah.
Lily, what is a third thing that you'd say?
Third thing, I guess I would say being really, I guess this ties into the other things, but being very, what's the word that I'm looking for? Honest in a blunt way with yourself about what it is that you're capable of doing within this work. And we had kind of talked about this earlier of like, oh, everyone thinks that they can do porn. Now go and stay hard on set with a million people, not a million, but a good amount of people around you and whatnot.
Feels like a million.
Yeah. Like you have to be very honest with yourself of like, okay, yes, maybe I can keep a hard on for a while and maybe I can shoot and I have references and whatnot, but do you have the time to manage social media? Do you have a platform? Do you have to worry about growing one? Are you going to worry about Telegram groups? Are you going to network? Are you going to get an agent? There's a million other things that go into it that isn't just the like your physical body and shooting, that I think a lot of people aren't very honest with themselves if they can handle or not.
I always say
and
that.
not in a bad way, but just like you need to be honest with yourself way.
I always know your limitations. Know what, know what you can do.
I would say the actual shoot is like 20% of the job.
Yeah, and the most fun part of it too.
Well, I think that's a very well put point, and I think that people that get into this, if they're not so prepared, they quickly find out that, oh, this is so much more.
Yep.
And that's why, like, I always say that porn or the adult entertainment industry has a higher turnaround rate than
Absolutely.
like telemarketing.
Absolutely.
Because once you find out what you have to do, to gain any kind of, whether it's financial success or personal success, it takes more work than you ever thought possible.
Absolutely. I was the same way when I entered the industry. I was like 19. I was still in college and everything, and I was in between like political work, and I was like, I had friends that were cam models here and there, and they were like, you should try this. You're, a skinny little blonde white girl. You'd do well on my free cams. And had zero fucking idea of what all that entailed and whatnot. And SESTA and FOSTA got passed, and then all of that other stuff. Yeah. Hell started hitting, and I very quickly started learning like all of the shit that came along with it. And thankfully for me, it worked out. Like
it was worth it enough for you to stick it out and learn the lessons.
Absolutely.
Learn from failure.
I'm
here you are
happy.
to this day.
Absolutely. I love this industry, and I'm very thankful that it did work out. But I think for a lot of people, that is not the case, for sure.
Well,
I'm ever so happy that I'm behind the camera, because I can't do what you guys do.
And we're thankful to have folks like you that are patient enough to deal with folks like us.
I look at some of the crap you guys put up with, and I'm just like, no.
Well, you know what I love about this? It's a mutual consideration both ways.
Yeah.
Back and forth. Yep. And with that, guys, Marshall, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for asking me. I'm really happy that you asked me.
Lily, I'm so glad that Marshall dragged you along to be on our little Penny Annie show.
Me as well.